What's going on, everybody? Dan back with another Moonshine talking. Hope everyone's having a good evening. It's the end of my weekend, pretty much. I go back to work tomorrow and then wash, rinse, repeat as far as that goes. But got in a killer leg workout today and then chatted with a few people here and there. And then I sat down and I decided to watch a couple movies that have been recommended to me. One of which was a movie called Candyland. And it's a horror movie from 2022. I can't, John or Josh Schwab is the name of the director. I really am not familiar with him. Most of the cast I wasn't really familiar with. A couple notable names from it were a young lady named Eden Brolin, who is the daughter of Josh Brolin, who's in just a ton of stuff. I mean, he's been in so many things. I think he was in probably a lot of people, as far as if you follow current movies, they know him from the most recent Deadpool movies. He was in No Country for Old Men. He was the older brother in the Goonies. A lot of the older heads would probably recognize him from that too. And he's just been in a ton of stuff. Just a tremendous actor, really good. And then Billy Baldwin, one of the Baldwin brothers, was in it. Not Alec. I don't think anybody could get him for anything as of late. He's been pretty tied up with his legal troubles. And then but basically the movie it's set at a truck stop. It centers around a group of lot lizards. If you know what a lot lizard is, it's pretty much they're sex workers, prostitutes who primarily congregate at truck stops and rest areas and places like that. And there's a whole group of them. There's four of them, and the movie starts out with them doing their thing, and it's a tad graphic, and then they run into this group of religious types who try to convert them and preach the gospel, yada yada, blah blah. And then eventually we get introduced to the main character, a woman named Remy, who's played by Olivia Lucardi. Again, a lot of the cast in this movie I'm familiar with. Never seen most of them in anything. Apparently, a few of them have been in like the Eden Brolin, Josh Brolin's kid. She was apparently in Yellowstone, but I've never watched Yellowstone, so I don't know too much about it. So that it just kind of she has been she's been excommunicated from the flock, as it were, and she falls in with this group, and they start showing her the ropes of how to be a lot lizard and all that sort of thing. And as the movie rolls on, they start finding bodies turning up, and you really don't know who's doing it. And then as the movie progresses, you start noticing there's something a little amiss with Remy, and it kind of goes from there. And the last act is just it's a bloody murderous rampage throughout the entire final act of the movie. It turns out, not to give too much away, but she's part of the religious group that she's with. They're basically a death cult, and without giving too much of it away, that's pretty much that's how that ties into the film and to the murders and all that. And it's really cool. It's if I were Joe Bob Briggs, I'd be talking about all the naked breasts and blood and dead bodies. I think there are like 10 murders in the movie at least. And it's just a super graphic. It's a lot of sex, blood, and violence. So it was pretty cool. I would definitely recommend it. I saw it on Tubi, and and yeah, it was real cool. I would recommend it. So that got me to thinking some like underrated movies that I've seen, underrated movies and shows and stuff like that I've seen. And I haven't talked about movies in a while, and I figure that's kind of a cool thing to do. I love movies. I love watching movies and TVs and stuff like that. So not TVs, not like I'm watching TVs. I watch TVs, but you know what I mean. I watch television and television series and all that. So I figured I'd mention a few more things that I enjoy. Another one, I don't have a copy of it, so this is it right here. It's called The Drop. It was from 2014. This is a super underrated movie. I don't hear anybody ever talk about it, and the casting is stellar. It's a really good story. It's based on a short story called Animal Rescue, which I've never read, but watching the credits and all that, that's what I knew it was based on. It's probably most notable because it's James Gandolfini from The Sopranos, Tony Soprano. It's his last movie that he ever made, and he does a fantastic job in it. It stars him, Tom Hardy, who a lot of people know from the Batman. He was Bane. He was in the Mad Max remakes, the movie Bronson. It's about some British, some notable British criminal inmate or whatever. I kind of got upset when I first heard about it because I thought it was about Charles Bronson. That would be pretty cool to see a movie about Charles Bronson. But anyhow, um, it's got Nomi Rapace, who was in, she was in Alien Prometheus. I think The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is the name of the movie. The other one that I know her from. It's got, I'm going to butcher his name, Matthias Schoenaerts. And I didn't really know him from anything. I know he's in a ton of stuff. I've his credentials are pretty long, and he's a really good actor. And as far as the plot of the movie, it's basically Tom Hardy plays a character called Bob. He's a bartender at his cousin Marv's bar. They used to have a little crew that used to run the neighborhood. They got run out by the Chechen mob, and so now they pretty much their bar is set up as a drop bar where they collect money for the mob, and then they'll pick it up, and it's called a drop bar basically is what it is. A couple of murders occur in the course of the movie, and they get robbed one night, and this kind of brings an investigation to their doorstep, and then the cops start looking into the place, and they start looking back into like all the kind of like the shadiness of the neighborhood, and how cousin Marv used to run the neighborhood, and it kind of goes from there. That's one of the main plots of the movie, and then there's a subplot where one night Bob's going home from work, and he finds a dog dumped in a trash can, and the dog's been abused and beaten all to shit. And then that's when he runs into Nomi Rapace's character, Nadia, and then they start to get to know each other, and they hit it off, and they start becoming a couple, yada yada. Then they introduce the character of Eric Deeds, which is played by Matthias Schoenaerts, and he's just this abusive, crazy asshole, and he apparently is the one who put the dog there. He apparently had a relationship with Nadia prior to Bob meeting her, and he tries to extort him over the dog, and it kind of goes from there. And then it all kind of ties in with this deal where cousin Marv is trying to get out from under the Chechen mob, and he hatches this plot to try to get out from underneath them, and it all kind of crescendos where they're set up as the Super Bowl Sunday drop, which is, I guess, in this scenario, in this world, is the biggest drop that you could have. So, and then it kind of goes from there, and it's really cool. Tom Hardy does a fantastic job in this. He plays like you can't tell if he's slow or what his deal is, but the turn at the end that he has is it's fantastic. It's really good. Just an incredible job. It's more of a drama. It's not so much horror or anything like that, but it's a fantastic movie that if you've never seen it, I'd go check it out. Again, it's called The Drop, and it's killer. Next up is this movie. I'm sure some people are familiar with it. It's Mandy. This one came out in 2018. It's got Nick Cage, uh, Panos Cosmatos. He's the one who wrote it. He did another movie called Beyond the Black Rainbow, which I saw a couple years ago. I wasn't all that impressed with it. It's kind of like his style is very psychedelic, very hallucinogenic experience. If you watch his movies, there's lots of vivid colors and flashing lights, and just it's a very hypnotic, very trance inducing, hallucinogenic kind of style that he has. But this Mandy is stars Nick Cage, a young lady named Andrea Riseborough. She plays the title character Mandy. Nick Cage's character is a guy named Red. He's a combat veteran, recovering alcoholic. He lives in the Pacific Northwest. He's a lumberjack. He meets Mandy, and they form a bond because the two of them are kind of broken characters. Eventually they run into this cult, this hippie death cult, and that's not a pun because the band I like. That's in this group called the Children of the New Dawn, and their leader is a guy named Jeremiah Sands, who's like a Charles Manson figure. He's a failed musician and just drug addict, and he's got all these followers, and they all just do all the crazy nonsense for him. So he sees Mandy as they're driving down the road one day in his hippie van, and he takes a liking to her. They find out where they live, and then they end up murdering her. And from there, it goes. The movie basically becomes a revenge piece where Nick Cage goes off the rails. There's a cameo by Bill Duke from Predator. He plays one of his war buddies, and it kind of goes from there. There's this really like wild group called the Black Skulls, and they're this biker gang that are all whacked out on this crazy, uh, high-powered LSD that some chemist makes them. And there's this really crazy acid trip scene in the movie that's related to that. It's just wild. It's kind of like really all over the place. It's like a combination of like a. It's like at times if Hellraiser and just any sort of like revenge piece were set in a fever dream, which was then being fueled by acid. That would be the way I would describe Mandy. As far as some kind of notable things about it, Nick Cage uses an axe. He forges an axe in the movie, and it's actually designed off of the F in the Celtic Frost logo design. So I thought that was pretty cool. Apparently, he's kind of into metal a little bit, so he's got halfway decent taste. But yeah, this is a wild one. I would definitely check it out. If you're a bit more 420 friendly, I guess you'd probably enjoy it a little more than some. But yeah, it's a really cool movie. I definitely recommend it. It's kind of a wild one, but it's cool nonetheless. And then I had a couple of TV shows that I wanted to recommend. Uh, this may surprise you. I don't know if it will or won't, but I really love animation. Not so much Japanimation or anything like that, any of the anime or manga or any of that stuff. But I like American animation, like cartoons. I grew up on Looney Tunes and stuff like that. But one of the shows I really like that's kind of I think is really underrated as far as animation goes is The Critic. I don't know how many of you have ever seen this, but it was a show that was on in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's made by Al Reese or Mike Reese and Al Jean, which are two of the main showrunners of The Simpsons. And it's got a lot of the same voice actors from The Simpsons. Nancy Cartwright, who does the voice of Bart Simpson, she does a voice. Maurice LaMarche, who's a veteran character, he's a veteran voiceover actor. He does a ton of voices in it. He does a lot of the celebrity impersonations. Basically, the show is about Jay Sherman, he's a film critic in New York, and he's voiced by John Lovitz, and the character is basically like a caricature of John Lovitz, and he's just this miserable, cantankerous, is had a failed marriage, and he's pissed. He hates all the movies that he sees. His boss is a guy named Duke Phillips, who's he's the voice actor is Charles Napier, who a lot of people remember him from Silence of the Lambs. He's the guy that gets hung up by Dr. Lecter, and he was also in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Very, very well known, well regarded character actor. He's been in a ton of stuff, and he's like a Ted Turner type of knockoff character. Well, he's just like this ruthless businessman with amoral and all. It's very funny, and yeah, it's just a very funny show. It spoofs a lot of Hollywood, and it's just the humor is very dry, and there's just like a I don't know, it holds a special place in my heart because me and my buddies when we were in wrestling school, we'd see it on Comedy Central because it bounced from channel to channel. Over the years, it kept getting canceled and coming back and canceled and going back to this station. I think it was on Fox or it was on ABC, then it was on Fox, then it ended up on Comedy Central, then it wound up on the internet. So it was just all over the place. but there were some gags in it that we always used to laugh at, and some of them are dated. You know, if you're a little bit older, you might recognize them. Like they do one where it's a Star Trek: The Next Generation, but they combine it with Hee Haw, so it's Hee Haw: The Next Generation, and they got the what's his the the Klingon in the show. I didn't really watch it, but he starts doing ham bone and stuff like that. So it's really goofy and funny. But it's another one that I would, if you've never seen it, I would check it out because it's very funny. And then finally, um, I just picked this up. Uh, this is a killer show. This I would recommend to everybody. I'd watch this 6 days a week and twice on Sundays. It's Banshee. It was on Cinemax, HBO. If you're not familiar, I'm sure most of you recognize that. That's Anthony Starr. He plays Homelander in The Boys. I've watched The Boys. I know a lot of people are really high on it. It's all right. It's fine. I don't have too many beefs with it, but I love Banshee. Banshee is just this great show. It's also got it basically it centers around this mysterious figure. It opens up with him getting released from prison. He just did a 15-year bid for stealing diamonds, and he got caught in the process. And his crew was this woman Anna, who's played by Ivana Milicevic, and she's been in a couple things, but the only thing I remember her from was she was in one of those Larry the Cable Guy movies, and then Hoon Lee is the other guy. He plays Job, and he plays the world's most infamous hacker. And they're just this little small time crew that they're working for this Ukrainian gangster named Rabbit, and they get caught, and he takes the fall for everybody, and he goes and does a 15-year bid because he loves Anna so much, and that happens to be Rabbit's daughter. And then as the show goes on, you start to learn that Rabbit set the whole thing up to send him away to jail. And the first season kind of it's I should go back a little bit. It's 4 seasons long. It came out in 2013 and ran through 2016, and it's just killer. So he ends up he does a 15-year bid. He's out. He gets released. He now is on a mission to find Anna, and he links up with Job in New York City and figures out where she is, and he goes to find her. And he winds up in the fictional town of Banshee, Pennsylvania, which is in the heart of Amish country. And one thing leads to another, and he winds up assuming the identity of the sheriff, the guy who's about to be sheriff of the town, named Lucas Hood. So from there on, you know him as Lucas Hood in the show. And he basically just assumes the identity of the sheriff that has just died. He winds up in a bar, and then the bartender who runs the place, it's the guy's name is Sugar Bates, and he's played by Frankie Faison. Which, if you're not familiar with him, he's an outstanding character actor. He's done his credentials are a mile long. He was on The Wire, if you're familiar with that show. I'm pretty sure he was in the original Maniac Cop movie. That was probably another one. But if you see his face, which I'll post it up here, that's him right there. I mean, he's just a killer actor, and he does a great job in this. But he plays the bartender. He's a retired boxer, and he winds up in Banshee, and he kind of works for what turns out to be the leading crime lord of the town, which is this guy Kai Proctor, who's played by Ulrich Thompson. And I'm not really familiar with a lot that he's done in the past, other than he was in the remake of The Thing. The character of Kai Proctor is it's something to behold. Basically, he's an excommunicated member of the Amish community. He gets shunned from the group because he's too much of a bad seed. He's violent. He's always involved in crime, lust, and all the things that people who are very much into the Amish lifestyle or come from that upbringing would frown upon. So he winds up going out on his own. He works his ranks up through the criminal underworld and becomes a gangster who he basically runs Banshee, Pennsylvania. He runs the racketeering, the drugs, the prostitution. He runs the strip clubs. the bar that Sugar operates out of, he pretty much he gets a piece of that. Like any vice that there is in the town of Banshee, he's involved with. And as the seasons go on and progress, he's slowly but surely trying to build his empire outside of Banshee, and you see how that works. Eventually, you get introduced to his daughter early on in the show. His or not his daughter, excuse me, his niece Rebecca, and she's played by Lily Simmons, who's a great character actor. She was also on Ray Donovan, which is another killer show. If you've never seen that, um, and she gets shunned as well because she's kind of a bad seed herself. So he starts grooming her to take over his operations as time goes on. And then there's kind of like a, just kind of like an uncomfortable relationship that also starts to develop between the two, which is kind of like, but anyhow. But yeah, and then he's got his right hand Burton, who's just this. He's he doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's like, oh boy. And he wears these glasses, and he's just this creepy little dude. And whenever he takes off the glasses, some mayhem is about to occur. So it's a just the way that the character itself. It's probably he is probably my favorite character in the show. And it's just and Ulrich Thompson does a phenomenal job on it. So yeah, so that was that one. And you start to learn, and this show, it bobs and weaves, it goes, it has so many different subplots and subtexts from Hood finally finding Anna and the relationship and how that develops to him getting, trying to hold his dual identity, being a total criminal and then running the town as a sheriff. There's little subplots between Kai Proctor and his dealings with the Native American tribe that's there that runs it. They're trying to set up a casino, and just all the interweavings. The first couple of seasons, it revolves around a lot of that, a lot of the Rabbit trying to find them and chasing them, and the whole thing, trying to set things up with the diamonds. Eventually they get white supremacists are involved in this show. They've got Satanists in the fourth season. This show's bonkers. It's so good. It's so criminally underrated. I can't recommend it enough. It's just fantastic. Even a lot of the second tier actors in it, the support cast, they're all phenomenal. The fight scenes in this are killer. The choreography and everything, it's all really well done. Just lots of sex, crimes, bullets, and beatings, and all sorts of madness. It's just one of those shows where everybody in the thing's an anti-hero, and it's tremendous. I can't recommend the show enough. Like if you've never seen it, then go check out Banshee. I recommend it to anybody. This one blows the boys out of the water as far as stuff that Anthony Starr has done. So if you're familiar with him through that and being Homelander, I would go check this out. So that's what I got for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm gonna get back to. I'm probably just gonna go sit and listen to some music or and watch a couple movies and do a couple other things that might constitute creativity. And yeah, and that's that. So as always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always take a chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. Everyone, have a good weekend. I got to get back to work tomorrow, and hopefully all goes well and it's not chaos incarnate. But anyhow, later.